Let's go.
You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Let's go.
Hi folks, welcome again to Making Data Simple. Today is I think it's a special day. And the reason it's a special day is if my metrics are correct, and they tend to be, we are at our 100th episode. So within our 100th episode, let me tell you a few things. One is over the course since we've started, we've had over 800,000 listens. Right now, I'll just give you some metrics just to be under full disclosure here. 8,000 listens per episode is kind of where we're at. Our top countries include USA, Great Britain, India, Australia, Canada, Germany, top cities. But we want everybody, by the way. But the top cities that we're hearing from are New York City, Toronto, Chicago, Melbourne, Sydney, and Sao Paulo. And look, we've had over 90 guests. We'd have several repeaters. We've had a couple two-timers, a very few three-timers. So I just want to thank everybody. I want to thank our guests, and I want to thank a humble thank you to all of the listeners. I would have never thought that we would have been this successful. And I can tell you, I'm smart enough to know it's not me. It's because of all the great guests that we've had on. And again, thank you for the listeners. And most importantly, it's the producers that are behind the scene that make this work. That often don't get the optics they need, but they are the podcast, and that's like Megan Helene today. She's doing the producing today. We've got a intern that we love and is going to be a permanent IBMer soon, which is Liam Seston, and we got Lana Kosick. And I know I'm forgetting a lot of people out there, or not mentioning a lot of people out there that are making this possible. I thank you guys because this has been terrific, and like what started out as just me selfishly wanting to learn more and meet more people and network has turned into a podcast that, look, I got to make happen every week, or I get emails that say, hey, where were you? So thank you so much again. I appreciate it. So in celebration of a 100th episode, I've got a bit of a celebrity today, and by the name of John Cohn, who is the latest that I have. He's a mover and a shaker. So John, we'll talk about this in just a moment. But you are at the IBM MIT Watson AI Lab. The other, I guess, titles you have are Distinguished Agitator, Chief Scientist of Design Automation. You've been in research. You're known as the Mad Scientist. If I could say a few more things, at least relative to what I know about you, and this won't do you justice, I'm certain of it. But so pardon me. But I know you've been with IBM for quite a while, somewhere around 40 years. But you've earned a BSE in MIT. You got a PhD in computer engineering for Carnegie Mellon. I don't know, greater than 30 technical papers, somewhere around 4 books. Over 100 patents, a fellow of IEEE. Man, you've as do most of my guests, and certainly with you, you leave me with, I've got a lot to do yet. So welcome, and thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh, thank you very much, Al. It's certainly been a long, strange trip. I'm actually on my 3rd career now with this MIT IBM Watson AI Lab. So it's been a constant reinvention, which has been really fun. So I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I was able to listen to a bunch of your other podcasts, and I really enjoy them.
Oh, well, thank you. I try to do my best. Like I say, it's always the guest, and I've got, you're the special guest of a 100th episode. I don't know if you knew that, but we specifically sought you out for this episode. So high expectations await.
That sounds. I'm honored to be here. Let's get you to 200.
Well, we met, and you probably don't remember this. I know you do a ton of keynotes, and I think I was doing a keynote at the same time. But we had met, I think it was an Informix user group keynote you did many years ago, and it was a fantastic keynote, by the way. But we met at that time, and it was dude, you're very intriguing. So we got a lot of things to cover today in a short amount of time. I think I'll just give you a lead, and I want to hear what you're doing. But you've done about, like you say, you've done a ton of different things. Not only that, you've co-starred in a Discovery Channel reality show called The Colony. You got to tell us a little bit about that. I think the listeners would find that interesting. Where I don't know. Why don't we start with that? You're a celebrity in many sorts, and you were on a reality show. How does a IBM scientist end up on a reality show?
Well, because I would have to say, Al, that working at a large company like IBM is just like being on a reality show. You're coupled with people with multiple skills. You always have to work out the personalities. You've got really difficult challenges, but then you're magically able to find a way through it. I think it's pretty much just like a reality show. It was quite an interesting part of my travels. One of the things that I really have enjoyed about my career, I've been there 38 years. And actually, if I put that in perspective, my late father-in-law, Gabe Mariano, was there 36 years. And he was a big maker. He was a machinist for in Endicott, New York, and he loved making things. But the thing he made that I liked the most was my wife, Diane, who was an IBMer for about 8 years before our kids started becoming born. And so we have about 82 years of IBM. And in that, I've moved around. First 30 years was doing chip design, and we can get into why I did these transitions. But as I was moving from that to what was next, which was Internet of Things, I was really looking for a way of kind of completely resetting. And honestly, I was thinking about becoming like an elementary or middle school teacher, which is I love working with kids, on inventing and science. And I actually one night went to, I tell the story all the time, but it actually happened like this. It was this December night. It was snowing, and I was asking. I went to my wife. I was like really into my head, going, what should I do? What should I do? How do I actually really dig into this outreach? Working with students. And she looked at me and she goes, I don't know. Why don't you go ask the cosmos? So I walked outside and with my beer and looked up in the sky and asked the question of the powers that are up there or whatever, and nothing happened until the next day. And I got out of the blue, a woman called from a casting agency in LA and asked me if I wanted to be on a show. She posed it as sort of a science show, and I heard that part, but I didn't really kind of grok the reality show part. But anyway, I did an interview, like a pod, almost like we're doing now, where we talk to each other over online, and made a little video. The questions were really kind of weird, like. Well, I remember one that I later found out was one of the reasons I got the second interview. It was, what kind of animal would you be if if you could be an animal? What kind would you be? And I remember saying I'd be a squid. I love squids. I've got a squid on the back of my telephone. But
Okay.
I said my fingers were in everything. I was full of surprises, and I was chewy if improperly cooked. And they liked that answer. So anyway, I went out there for an interview, and which was totally unlike anything I expected. I remember sitting there on the curb at LAX, waiting for them to come up, and they jumped out of the car. And, I was trying to shake their hand. They put a bandana over the rest of my head, threw me in the back of a van with some other people, which I never figured out who they were. And we went to a place for 3 days and, took things apart and put things back together and blew things up. I got to, it was the first time I did a job interview I ever got to blow things up, which is actually one of my hobbies. And, I had to take psychological tests and everything else, and then went back to Vermont. And I was like, well, that was interesting. And then a couple of weeks later, in maybe January, I got a call saying, okay, you're on the show. You got to be out here for just under 3 months, and you can't tell anybody where you were. And so that was a pretty interesting work conversation. I'd already been made a fellow, and I was like going to go take almost 3 months off to go do this crazy thing, and that was a very interesting conversation. But I went out there and 59 days living in a warehouse with, it was me and 9 crazy people, and I have to say, those crazy people are all still really good friends of mine, and it was an amazing experience. I mean, I could go on that for hours. Let me just get highlights. I will say this: I've been a vegetarian since 1976, or now a kind of a pescatarian. But my first red meat was on that show, and that was rat. Ate a lot of rat, pigeon. It was good
You
though.
drink a lot, John? I'm just messing with you.
Well, I will say that I do make the alcohol I drink, and I learned on when I was associated
Of
with
course
that
you
show
do.
for years, and so we learned to make alcohol that you could use to run a motor, and we used to laugh that it burned whether you lit it or drank it. But it was good.
So wait, hold on. What was the purpose? Stepping back. What was the purpose of the show? You got to outline that for
Purpose?
our listeners. Yeah, purpose.
Purpose?
Did it have a purpose? I hope.
Uh, it did actually. You know what? Joking aside, well, what fun is that? Put joking aside. It was for Discovery Channel, and it was the genre was kind of a post-apocalyptic survival show, but it wasn't an elimination show. It was a team show, and
Yeah.
the big concept of it was called The Colony, and it was a big concept on inventing under duress. And since Discovery has a mission to try to promote science and engineering and tech, what they wanted to do is show the process of engineering when you didn't actually have, when you were doing it under constraint. And what it had all the trappings of a reality show. Every third word was beep, and there was a lot of intrigue and stuff like that. And the plot itself was pretty contrived in that we were to be we were survivors of some unnamed apocalypse, and there were other survivors, and some of them were good guys and some of them were bad guys, and we were trying to figure out how to rebuild. We had sort of come together organically, which really happened. And then what I really liked about it is that they would leave stuff for us to find. I was actually one of the science advisors for the second season. So they had stuff out there that was available, but it wasn't the stuff. They never told us what to do, and as a matter of fact, they were very careful not to give us any hints. We didn't have the internet. We had a couple of books, and it was basically what was in our heads. And what I liked about it, so there were a lot of things that it was pretty hard actually. Hygiene was bad. Let me just say, I was the dirtiest colony. There was a lot of emotions were high because they would, it was quite a bit of stress. They wouldn't really let us sleep well. They would attack us at night. They had sort of paid actors that were bad guys. We weren't scripted at all, so we never knew what was going on. But that said, it was a pretty talented group of people, and for the most part, we got along better than they liked because they wanted a little bit more friction. I was actually chosen to fight with another guy, and I'm not much of a fighter. We ended up getting along really well, which I later found out was problematic. But it was really something. I mean, and it just got more and more intense as we went through, and we got less and less sane. In the end, this is an interesting kind of point. So it was a really good microcosm for what it would be like, in any sort of stressful situation, because you had to figure out, among yourself how you were going to work as a team to get something done. Oftentimes, the people who wanted to lead weren't necessarily the right ones to lead. You had to kind of work that out real time. You never had all of the gear and equipment or knowledge that you needed. Oftentimes things didn't go as planned. You'd have unexpected stuff. So it was incredibly good training. And I think from Discovery's perspective, being able to show to the viewers, and it was actually a very popular show. It's still on reruns. I still get ID'd. I was on a bus in Nairobi a couple of years ago, and somebody came up to me. It was pretty weird, but I think it portrayed, that kind of, inventive spark, which is exactly what I love doing. So it was great.
So I just Googled it on YouTube, and I look for the colony, John Cohn, and if anybody wants to go out there and have a look at these episodes, I think at least some of them are out there, and it looks like you say that they continue to play them, huh?
Yeah,
So
it's been 10 years actually, but yeah, I was John C. We didn't use last names or the professor. I was playing the professor from Gilligan's Island. It was like it was funny though because it was at the first part. It was not what I expected. Like life usually isn't, and it was you know uh, I wasn't expecting all the drama, and I almost left. I almost decided to leave, but at the end they had to drag me out of there. It was the best thing I've ever done.
So I got it. So post apocalyptic, got it. So it's about survival. So did anybody tap out?
Nope, nope.
So everybody stayed in and made it.
Yep, and it wasn't. There was no elimination kind of thing. And second season two, they also everybody made it. Though it was there are definitely some emotionally sensitive points in there. My wife even got to be on the show, which was pretty funny as a surprise. This is a bit of a spoiler, if that's okay. But
Yeah.
2 weeks from the end, um, I was working. I'd been working all night on something, on a radio, actually. And one of my colleagues said, "Hey, John Cohn, your wife is here." And I was like, "How do you know my last name?" And I went out and I looked out the window, and there among a bunch of actors was my real wife. And that was pretty amazing. So she got to work there. And she's a great builder. She's an awesome person and also a really good technical person. So it was great having her. I remember though, because the cameras were all looking at me like, "What's he going to say?" And I was staring at her and I said, "Who has the dogs?"
Nice. I love you. Anything, but you chose who has the dogs. Like
Yeah.
nice. Sounds like you married the right woman, though. That's one thing.
IBM issued, I tell you.
So, but here's the thing about these reality shows. I mean, you're talking as if it. I'm always questioning. I know the viewership does as well as what's legit and what's not. But you're painting a picture like it was legit. I mean, you actually you had to eat rat because that was the only choice you had.
Yeah, it was pretty much. There was, the scenarios that were presented to us each week. That there was sort of external forces. People would come and attack us, or they would come and trade with us. So we were always adapting. That part might be kind of contrived, but we really were living in there, really trying to eat what we could find. And like most of the stuff, they would allow us to find what they wanted us to find. And so we had a lot of weird food. We had rice and we had flour, though the mice had gotten into all of that. So that I'll spare you the unappetizing details of that. But for protein,
hope you found a strainer to get everything that wasn't organic.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Your yuck factor completely had to go away. But what we ended up, eating. We had a lot of unmarked stuff. Turned out we had a lot of dog food and cat food, and cat food's not bad. I would stay away from dog food.
It's better than dog food. Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, there you go. There's one takeaway. But for protein, we would eat anything. So pigeons, rats. At one point, we were able to quote find a goat and butcher it, that was pretty traumatic. Actually, we had. It was all done with the right, anti-cruelty stuff and everything. But I remember very, very clearly. It was about 3 days before the end, and we were starving. I'd lost. What did I lose? I probably lost. I'm a pretty skinny guy, and I think I was down about 14 pounds. And some people, one of the guys lost 50 pounds, but
wow.
There was a dog out on the street and we were trying to catch the dog, and it was not to pet. We would have easily, yeah.
Not all right. Very good. So, Just for the record, I have watched at least many of the shows. I'm asking leading questions, but it is an intriguing. I like that kind of stuff. I mean, the Discovery Channel and stuff like that, survival type stuff. So yeah, it was very good, and I thought it was interesting. But you don't know how much is real, which is not real. But I think you've explained that well.
Well, what was important to me just in that is that the process of invention was shown with all the complexities of, how do you team up? How do you, how do you ask for help? How do you give help? How do you incorporate failures? And I think from that standpoint, the show was really good because I think the things that actually worked really worked. And it was really fun to watch out on the interwebs there of how other people were trying the experiments. That was really great.
Well, the other thing is look like they kept it. I worry about this whether it's completely. I understand some of it's got to be contrived and a little bit manufactured. We do live in the modern age. You don't want anybody getting hurt or anything else like that. But you want to see, if it's reality TV, it's got to be somewhat reality. And it sounds like that was the case, at least in this situation. And you learned a lot about yourself as well as entertain the viewership. So anyway, pretty cool. Yeah. Mr. John Cohn, guys. So John, I've seen many of your presentations. I mean, anybody that can go out there and do a search for you, you'll see a lot of great talks, and I would encourage you to do so. I've seen them live. I think the cool thing is I could go on and on, but I think you have a unique ability to take a lot of the complex and make it understandable to the rest of us. So I could see why you would have interest or be a very good educator or a teacher, because I think that suits you well. The other thing is you make it entertaining. Every time I've seen you, you've worn like some kind of lab coat, very colorful lab coat, and or flashing lights around your head or whatever. So it's hard to pay attention to your phone at that point in time because you're saying, what's this guy all about? Which is really fabulous. So good for you in doing that and making it relatable to everybody. So everything
recognition. I learned about fashion, I learned at a festival called Burning Man. So that outfit kind of came together as something that I wear out on the desert with a bunch of my best hippie friends.
All right. So we got to dive a little bit into this. As we were getting into the podcast, you and our producer, Megan, as I introduced at the beginning of the show, we're talking about you've got a kindred spirits in Burning Man. For those that may not be familiar with it, can you quickly talk to this? Because I found it fascinating.
Sure. Well, I don't know. It's been Burning Man's been going for more than 25 years, and it's a festival. It just keeps growing, but it's in the deserts of near Reno, Nevada. But it's coming together for a variety of reasons. People come together, and it's a kind of a spontaneous city that it absolutely appears from absolutely nothing. And then last time I was there, which was 2 years ago, 70,000 people, and then a few weeks after that, there's nothing left of it. So it's spontaneously coming together. A lot of kind of echoes what we were just talking about with the reality shows, people coming together, organizing or self-organizing into camps to share a variety of things. There's no cash, you can't buy anything. And it's basically free exchange of everything, ideas, food. You basically have to be radically self-reliant. You have to bring everything in and take everything out, and anything that you need, you can't barter, you can't buy. Someone may gift you something you need, and you may gift them something, but it's got very simple rules. I remember my first time that there's only like 10 rules, and one of them is you have to label your explosives. And I thought, I can live with this. But
wow.
There are many things in there. It's not a music festival, but there's some music. But it's mostly just a celebration of being human. And one aspect of it is to bring participatory projects, art and tech together. And what I found is that it is an amazing place for kind of self-reliant technology, lighting and fire. I happen to be a fire performer, and as is Megan, and making, the mix of, well, actually, as a segue to work questions, which I think we'll probably get to.
I don't know at this point.
Well, a lot
Just
of
keep
what I
going.
do, is making, basically electronics and computer controlled things like lighting and fire. And most of what I learned was through the friends that I made and the pieces that I saw out of Burning Man. And ironically, I've been doing that. I love making stuff with my hands. But ironically, the stuff that I did for Burning Man and similar things like that, smaller festivals that I go to, was kind of my portfolio for when I wanted to go, when I moved from working on chips at work to working on Internet of Things, because I had been spent 10 years building things that were computer controlled, remotely controlled, computer operated devices, and everything I knew practically about Internet of Things I learned by making weird things for that desert community. It was kind of interesting how my personal passions, they served for a couple of purposes. First of all, they're fun and beautiful. Well, I think anything with fire is beautiful. But it was a great way to relate to other people, whether they were at festivals or whether they're students. I always built things. Whenever I build things, I build them with students. So it's a great way of kind of, building that passion for engineering. But then it became actually my portfolio for work, because it was what we were working on. How could IBM help, instrument the world and control the world sounds wrong. Instrument the world and help, optimize it to work better by using Internet of Things. And these devices that I made were both great examples, and it was always fun to talk to clients about things that I made. But it was also the thing that informed, how I knew it worked, what didn't work, what needed to be better.
So can you talk to at least one of the devices so we can picture it in our head?
Ooh, a Burning Man thing. My friend Homer and I made a 21. Oh, so it was a 7 meter tall. So it was about 21 feet or 22 feet long. It was a carousel that kind of had two giant 21-foot steel wheels. And inside of those steel wheels, which could be driven forward or reverse independently, almost if you think about the kid's toy, a big wheel, you could move them both forward. You went forward. If you move one forward and the other one reverse, you would turn one way or the other way. You could move it in reverse. So it was run by diesel hydraulic compressor. And then in between those two 21-foot wheels was a smaller carousel that was independently driven, that had a bunch of, as a matter of fact, I'm looking out my window and seeing one of them right now, had two-chair ski lift from a nearby ski lift. I have the fourth one of them right here, but it had ski chairs, and you could turn that forward or backwards. And so you could carry about 7 people, well, 6 people, and then the driver. And then there was just a dead wheel in the back where the compressor was. And then I did all the computer controlled lighting. So these 21-foot wheels were lit with computer controlled lighting. So you could drive it forward and it could look like it was driving backwards. And we drove it around all night. And it had remote control of the lighting and the hydraulic control. It was built by, a team. We have about 40 people, I guess, working on it. We brought high school students, college students. I'm the electronics and controls guy. Homer was the mechanical genius. It was made all by junk in about 40 days, and yeah, it weighed about 6 tons. We had quite a bit of interesting times getting it out there, keeping it running, but it was magical. It was called the Time Cycle. I think you could probably look it up. Look up Burning Man, the Time Cycle, and it was something we did. Our Burning Man troop was organized by Ben Cohn of Ben and Jerry's, the Ben and Ben and Jerry's, and so we have a really nice group of people who go out there. They're not all from Vermont, but a core team of us are, and so that was one. Yeah, I've had a lot of fun building things for other people. My real pleasure is when somebody comes to me with a vision. And I feel like between me and my friends, we can make anything, but for some reason, I always prefer that it's somebody else's idea. Like right now, I'm touching. I did there's a band in Vermont called Fish, which is a big, they're a big jam band. I'm a kind of an old
Yeah, I know
deadhead
Fish. Yeah.
record. Yeah. So their bass player, Mike Gordon, is a good friend of mine. And 2013, I built a 30-foot, it's in several pieces, but a 30-foot keyboard that his band, he has his own band that travels for taking to it. It's called the Eel, and then I helped build a circular crowd surfing version of it called the Reel. But right now, I've got a piece of it I'm touching it right now, where I'm installing it in his house for his kid and family to play with, just to make it easier. So I love. He came to me with this crazy idea, and it. I don't know. I just love making stuff like that. And again, I'm actually using IBM tools. I'm using Node-RED and some other components that we've open sourced, and that's what's inside it. I wish I could show it to you.
Was this guy call you up and say, John, I could really use a 30-foot keyboard. That's what we need. That's what would be cool.
Exactly like that. Though it's a whole lot of. Yeah, it's exactly. I love doing that. I love exactly that. I love it. And it's funny because that's sort of what we do at work, right? Somebody will come and say, what I need is a system for doing this kind of asset management. And we've collected a group of people around the company, like my friend Marcus, my friend John, my friend Matt, that, just are great at doing that kind of stuff. That's what I really like doing the most.
You really are a mad scientist, aren't you? You're like Dr. Brown in Back to the Future. You've got it all down. I mean, you practice what you preach here.
It is Doc Brown is that was one of the questions back on the colony. They said, who would play you in a movie? And I said, Doc Brown. And a friend of mine heard that story, and he lives in Amsterdam, and he has a DeLorean. So I got to drive a DeLorean around Amsterdam. It was pretty cool.
They probably thought you were Doc Brown. All right. So look, I think I could continue on this thread forever. By the way, Megan, you're listening. Is everything he's saying? I hear these are called burners, right? Are you a burner too?
Yes, I am most certainly a burner.
So you're at these festivals along with John, I presume.
Yes, I'm at them. I'm building large-scale art installations. I'm performing with fire in the conclaves around When the Man Burns. I'm pretty in it, pretty thick.
Yeah, we just established right before this that Megan and my youngest son, Gabe, both my two living sons, Max and Gabe, are burners, and that we've been able to figure out that Megan and Gabe were within 50 yards of each other on a particular burn, because they were both in the conclave.
Yes, yeah, that is correct.
Wow. And we were just talking about actually, this is a great place to put it, Al, if I can put a pitch out there. As Megan and I were just saying, wouldn't it be great if there was an IBM camp out there?
Yes.
There's nothing commercial about it. The idea of getting some of our friends who have the same interests and same skills out there as a team for fun would be great. So wow. If you're listening, reach out to one of us.
Thanks for listening to the Making Data Simple podcast, where we make data fun. Be sure to visit ibmbigdatahub.com/podcast to access the show notes and uncover even more great episodes. Remember, the views expressed here are those of the host and its guests, and do not necessarily represent the views of IBM. Until next time,
Let's go.
Over and out.